but I feel much better not drinking any coffee. And I felt energized. My mood was stable throughout the day. I didn't feel any sense of melancholy or depletion in my energy levels. So, why not quit coffee? The reason is I really love the taste of coffee and I want to continue drinking coffee. So, I tested it one more time. I decided to have coffee in the morning last week, and I noticed my mood completely plummet in the evening. Welcome to Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan, and the reason I launched this podcast is to create a ripple effect of optimism that reaches 1 billion people in the next decade. Ambitious? Very. Scary? A little bit. The aim of Present Potential is to empower listeners by sharing stories of individuals who've turned challenges into opportunities, proving that we all have untapped potential. If you're new to this podcast, welcome. If you've tuned in before, thank you for your support, and I hope you find value in these conversations. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Present Potential. I'm your host, Hassan. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you examples and stories from my life about how I noticed changes in my behaviors and feelings based on the consumption of coffee. So let's begin. I've always enjoyed drinking coffee ever since university. I always loved having a cup of coffee in the morning and sometimes in the afternoon. And it was just a social thing as well. So if I were to meet any friends after school, I would definitely have a cup of coffee. And at that time, I used to have a lot of sugar with my coffee, which is not something that I do anymore. And I've taken that habit with me, the coffee drinking habit with me. And in all my work, I used to always have coffee in the mornings and in the afternoons. And it was up until a few years ago that I started really loving my coffee. And I used to have coffee every single morning and in the afternoons at certain times. Now, there was a point in the past few years where I used to have double shots of espresso in the morning and in the afternoon. And what I didn't notice at that point in time was my sleep patterns, because I used to even have coffee in the afternoon after 6 p.m. or so. And I noticed that I wasn't sleeping well. As soon as I go into bed, I start struggling to fall asleep. Now, I don't know if it was my mental capacity or things that are going in my mind, but reflecting now about it, I really believe that it was the coffee that was impacting my sleep. I started noticing that my sleep patterns weren't doing well. So I started thinking whether it's the coffee. And I've been doing research in terms of like sleep and caffeine intake and what would be the best thing for me. So I started pushing back the time that I would consume coffee. And I think I started that the latest time I would drink coffee was 4 p.m. and still my sleep was disrupted. So I went back to 3 and 2, and ultimately I stayed at like the 1 p.m. And that gave my body enough time to break down the caffeine in order not to disrupt my sleep. And it's been working. What I noticed then was my mood used to completely change. And this is what I wanted to share with you, because when I changed the consumption hours, at the evening, I used to feel completely sad. It was like 6 to 8 hours after I have my last cup of coffee. My emotions would be completely different, and I would go into the state of feeling low or even anxious. And I don't know what it was. I didn't know where it was coming from or what was really sad that was going on. It was just my body feeling completely sad. So it was up until a few months ago when it was Ramadan, where I was fasting. So I was not consuming any food or drink from sunrise to sunset. And because I was sleeping at around 11 p.m. or 12, there was not enough time for me to have coffee after dinner and also get a good night's sleep. So I cut coffee completely during that month. And I felt great. My mood was fantastic and I felt ecstatic, energized, focused, and able to do a lot of things that I wanted to do. Now, after Ramadan, I went back to my normal coffee drinking hours and I decided to cut my afternoon coffee to see what would be the impact in my routine, in my behaviors, in the way that I feel, in my own performance. So the last coffee I would have in the day was around like 10 a.m. And that gives my body a lot of time to be able to break down the caffeine in order to digest and not impact my sleep. Now, what I've noticed is that if I were to finish drinking coffee at 10 a.m., by 6 p.m., I would go into a really down mood again. And I started observing this and noticing these patterns in my own behavior and wondering whether it's coffee. Now, the last thing I wanted to do was quit coffee because I love the taste of coffee, and caffeine used to give me such a surge of energy. And it was also a great social thing. But the truth is, it was impacting me. And I realized this when we went to a birthday party, a family member's birthday party. And I remember I had coffee in the morning, and by 6 p.m., I was so down. I felt so sad. And I was sitting at the table enjoying the dinner that I was trying to fake that I was. And across from me was my wife's aunt. And she looked at me and she said, "You look a little bit down. Are you okay? What are you feeling? What's happening?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm perfectly fine. Everything's great." But her comment actually made me realize that I was feeling down and I was not sure why. And I wondered whether it was coffee. So I faced it head on and I decided not to drink coffee for a few weeks to understand how my behaviors and my emotions would be impacted. I hate to say it, but I feel much better not drinking any coffee. And I felt energized. My mood was stable throughout the day. I didn't feel any sense of melancholy or depletion in my energy levels. So, why not quit coffee? The reason is I really love the taste of coffee and I want to continue drinking coffee. So, I tested it one more time. I decided to have coffee in the morning last week. And I noticed my mood completely plummet in the evening. It was very clear. The pattern was identical to every single time that my mood was down. So I was very sad because I knew that I'm going to stop drinking coffee. But this is where my wife actually gave me this idea. Why not try drinking decaf coffee? Now, it might taste a little bit different. It might have a little bit of caffeine, even though it's decaf, but it's worth a shot to test it. And that's what I did. I actually had my first decaf coffee yesterday. And I'm so happy to say that it didn't impact my mood in any way. I felt great throughout the day. The last time I drank it, I had it at 12 noon, and my mood was completely high throughout the day. I was so happy and generally in a good mood. And so I decided to have it today again. And this is the reason why I'm sharing this with you. It's because once we start noticing how our bodies are behaving and the patterns in our lives, we're able to make small tweaks and adjustments in order to be able to amplify our own performance, in order to become high performers, in order to be able to do the things that we love whenever we can in anything that we want to do, whether it's consuming coffee or whether it's working at a job or completing a task or meeting or preparing a script or writing or doing any certain job. When we notice how our bodies are responding, we can unpack that to realize what our bodies are actually telling us and the signals that they're providing. Now, I didn't just completely cut off coffee and decide not to drink it because I actually enjoy it. Certainly, drinking coffee in the afternoon is not ideal for me, so I've cut that completely. And drinking caffeine or double shot espressos in the morning actually impacts my mood in the evening. So, having decaf coffee is where I am. And that's the message that I wanted to share is to become aware. It sounds it sounds like emotional intelligence as well because we're developing our self-awareness of how our body is behaving based on our own feelings to any external or internal circumstances and adjusting and adapting to that and self-regulating and managing the way that we feel. And it's also so important because we become aware of our social awareness, what people are telling us, how we're behaving with others, whether we have empathy, whether we have motivation to do things. And lastly, the relationship management side of it. Understanding our emotions and how it impacts us, how we regulate ourselves, and how we engage with others, it's such a profound skill that we can build. And I use the word skill here purposefully because it is a skill that we can develop. And the coffee be a metaphor. Notice what things in your life are serving you and what things might not be serving you. And instead of like cutting them off completely, it's worth exploring where on the spectrum you lie, what kind of things that work for you and what don't, and how much of them and when. All of these actions will be able to unravel or unpack a lot of awareness in the things that we do. So I hope that my short experience of drinking coffee and caffeine and decaf has been able to illuminate some sort of awareness of the things that we can do in our lives in order to become the better versions of ourselves, to rediscover who we are, in order to perform to the best of our capabilities and enjoy this life, to wake up every single day feeling fulfilled and energized to do the things that we love. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember that this is the most important day of your life. And until next time, have a great day. Thank you for watching and listening to Present Potential. If you found value in this episode, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Join the conversation in the comments and let us know your biggest takeaway. If you'd like to listen to other inspiring stories, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Make sure to also follow us on Instagram under Present Potential Podcast, where you get to see behind the scenes and engage with us.